December 12 and 14, 2015, when, no, who were not only killed, they were given a secret burial in an unmarked grave. That is before the International Criminal Court. In this case, it depends on the way both the Lagos state government and the federal government handle the recommendations. If for any reason the recommendations of the panel are poo-pooed and nothing happens at the end of the day, that will not be the end of the matter. The ICC is there. And right now, Ruben, I'm involved in a number of cases of transitional justice in Africa. President Thomas Sankara, that was killed 34 years ago, and everybody had forgotten about it. Just last month, the trial of those who killed him, including ex-president Blaise Compaoré, commenced in Ouagadougou. In the case of President Yahya Jammeh, the human rights community, global human rights community, representatives just had a meeting in Banjul last week to get ourselves prepared for the release of the report of the Commission of Inquiry ongoing in that country. I'm sure you are aware President Shastelo is languishing in prison. Humanity committed years ago in Sierra Leone and Liberia. Of course, ex-president Ismail Abre of Chad, who killed about 4,000 people, was convicted in Senegal and jailed, I think sentenced to life imprisonment. He passed on a few months ago. So there is no room for impunity when it comes to crimes against humanity, aggression, and other similar offenses. So whatever the government does with this report, I can assure you there can be no cover-up any longer. And in this case, the white paper cannot, with profound respect to the members, vitiate or impugn or question the findings, because the panel members listen to the witnesses. So you can't sit down in the office of the government and be rubbishing the report. What the government is asked to do with respect to these recommendations, what do? If the government is not prepared to recommend prosecution, there is a right of private prosecution. So you can trust the EndSARS protest movement. The EndSARS movement has already set up a panel of lawyers, and they are working with the People's Alternative Political Movement to ensure that everybody recommended for prosecution is brought to book. Secondly, the panel could not complete the assignment because it was monumental. So out of 252 petitions, the panel was only able to deal with 186. So the panel has recommended that the government of Lagos State should set up a standing human rights committee to attend to these other petitions. And I'm sure that will be done because that recommendation is in line with the resolution of the National Economic Council, of which the governor of Lagos State is a member. That body said in each of the states, just like the National Human Rights Commission in Abuja, we should have a standing human rights committee. And so the committee is going to deal with the remaining petitions. So there is no way the government can abandon the recommendation. They are so fundamental. And in fairness to the governor, he has said, with the report of, the emergence of the white paper, proper healing will start. And you can't have proper healing if there is any attempt to cover up the findings of the panel.
Okay, Mr. Falana, there are two other issues I'd like to bring up with you, also of national interest. In Igbo leaders met with President Buhari a few days ago. And the main subject of discussion was the need to find a political solution to the continued trial of Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the indigenous peoples of Biafra. And the president said, well, he will look into the request. But in any case, he would not want to interfere with the judiciary or violate the principle of separation of power. But can the president take a decision within the purview of Section 174 by directing the Attorney General of the Federation to enter a nolle prosequi?
Well, thank you very much. You will recall that a couple of weeks back, the Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, did indicate that the cases of Nnamdi Kanu and Sunday Adeyemo
Sunday
Igboho might be resolved politically. In the case of Kanu, frankly speaking, the charges can hardly be proved. One of the counts is sedition. Sedition was pronounced illegal and unconstitutional in 1983 in the case of Arthur Nwankwo and the state. So I don't know, I can't see how some of those charges will stand in law. So the choice before the government is to have this matter resolved politically. In the case of Sunday Igboho, the government has not filed a request in the Benin court for his extradition. So I believe the government is also taking its time to resolve this matter politically. More so that the High Court in Oyo State has said that organizing rallies to demand for demand for self-determination is not illegal under our law. So I believe the government has no choice but to resolve these matters politically. Also, that the IPOB could be said to have extended the only branch to the government with respect to the gubernatorial election just concluded in Anambra State. If IPOB had not suspended hostilities in that state, there's no way you could have had the election. So I believe the government has taken cognizance of all the facts and circumstances of these cases and has therefore resolved to handle them politically. With respect to Section 174, the Attorney General does not need to take instructions from the President having regard to the state of the law. The Constitution has empowered him to discontinue any case at any state in the public interest. And this case suggests that the government has to intervene. If the Attorney General does not even exercise his powers, the President can, under Section 175 of the Constitution, grant amnesty. And that has happened before. I defended Henry Oka, who was charged. I think it was a 62-count charge. We raised a plenary objection against 59 of the 62-count charge. We won. The remaining 3, we also raised an objection. It was at that stage that the late President Umaru Yar'Adua asked for political resolution. And so that was how we resolved that case. And the guy, Henry Oka, was quite influential among the militants. So he was the one that went from one camp to the other to preach, peace. And that was how the Niger Delta militants decided to give peace a chance. I believe if the same approach is adopted by the government this time, we also can have a restoration of law and order in the southeast, in the southwest. But the government must be ready to engage and look at the circumstances that led these young people to declare a war against the neo-colonial state of Nigeria. So that's my own position on the matter. So the government has to move very speedily.
Well, finally, Mr. Falana, we have just about 3 or 4 minutes to go. What do you think of Secretary of State, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's first visit to Africa? The shuttle from Kenya to Nigeria to Senegal, and with him telling the Nigerian authorities that the U.S. may have no option but to invoke the Leahy law against Nigeria. Should it be established that Nigeria is guilty of human rights abuses? And this is coming just after the U.S. had removed Nigeria from the 2021 list of religious rights violators.
Well, Ruben, yes, I read the speech of the U.S. Secretary of State. Frankly speaking, I believe the struggle to ensure that human rights are respected in Nigeria is that of the Nigerian people to wage. And I'm delighted, personally, that our young people are prepared more than ever before to align themselves with progressive forces in Nigeria to ensure that human rights are respected in our country. All that the friends of Nigeria can do is to support the struggle of the Nigerian people. The United States of America, the United Kingdom and others will not fight for Nigeria. And our experience has borne this out. In all seriousness, these countries are worried, and that emerged in the speech of the Secretary of State, that we are worried that in the last 1 year, about 4 governments have been overthrown in Africa, that we're having a resurgence of military rule, and that Africans must ensure that we put an end to this disturbing phenomenon. Nigeria has a role to play, and that authoritarian rule by civilian governments often lead to frustration, and frustrations of the populace is often exploited by adventurers in military uniform to stay course. So if we do not want the democratic process disrupted, the governments in Africa must embrace democracy, must arrest authoritarian rule, must address impunity, official impunity, and more importantly, must address the economic crisis confronting the country. And this time around, the government of Nigeria must be prepared to reject in toto the deleterious suggestions by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank to cause major popular protest, to incite the people against the government by asking the government continue to devalue the national currency, remove subsidies from electricity and fuel, and operate neoliberal economic policies that will aggravate poverty in the country. Whereas in their own countries, in the West, the government is giving from time to time subsidies to the weak and the vulnerable. President President Trump, a stout defender of the status quo, an enemy of the masses in America, gave out twice over $2 trillion by way of palliatives. President Joe Biden has just ensured that the Congress pass a budget that will put money, some money, in the pockets of the poor and the vulnerable. Therefore, those who are not criticizing the United States of America, the bastion of capitalism, for giving subsidy to the poor, cannot be allowed to come here and incite our government to cancel subsidies meant for the poor to alleviate poverty in the country. So, for me, the Secretary of State of the United States has given a good speech to sustain the status quo. It's now left for the government to react. But as I said, the struggle to institutionalize democracy in Nigeria, the struggle for the control of our national economy, the struggle for equitable distribution of the Commonwealth is for Nigerians to wage. No country